War 125, I was part of something bigger than I ever anticipated. First, greetings to anyone checking this video out from Robert Loves Games. It has been a delight to work on such a massive project. In this video, I took 4 of our facility leads that worked the largest facility ever made in Foxhole around to talk about the facility and how it operated. Doom has been Knight's main designer, and he'll be here, but he took more of an advisory role this war, and JJ took the lead on the northern half of this facility. I'll also be joined by JJ and Tigers, and Tigers has been a monster in telling me numbers in a way that I can understand. At the end of this video, I'll bring Tierlock along, who is well known for the working aesthetics of this facility, one of the masterminds behind Liquid Transfer. I was unable to get the Joe's perspective on the final day of this war. The Doves are force ending this war. This is the final day of the facility. You get to see us remember what we accomplished and say our final goodbyes as we explain how this massive project worked. I realize this is a very long video, and I would recommend you watch either Tierlock's Frostpunk music video or Edam's documentary instead. I wish I could have everyone here who made a suggestion, helped plan, or even worked on the facility, but this video is already too long as it is. Alright, let's go ahead and get into it. Alright, so looking at the very start of this, we were going to have Naboy canceled last second when he realized today's Father's Day and is now making amends with his father. When we first committed to this, we were gonna work with Joes. We were Knight. We were going to do a Bluefin as our main project, and then as our kind of secondary, we were going to help run some kind of public facility with the Joes, help them get a little bit more well known. We've worked with Joes before, or we haven't worked with Joes before. We've seen them, and they do great public work. Do you think that's accurate there, Doom, so far?
Yeah, Joe's is an awesome regiment. We've seen them do another massive public battle tank operation out of the islands, so we've adored those guys for a long time.
Yeah, so
we're super excited to work with them this war.
So this war was kind of like testing the waters, letting them use our already established name, our credit with Sigil and the other regiments, and to kind of running a facility where we would make the claim and then they would run it, although we didn't necessarily have the manpower this war. I didn't expect to have much manpower. I expected some, but again, I thought our main project was going to be the Bluefin. Our Bluefin coordinator early in the war, he had to dip out due to some real life stuff happening. Happens to all of us. So yeah, Bob Ross, dude, he's awesome. I love him. So he ended up dipping out. We took what we stored up for early stuff and moved that to Westgate. But let's talk about the plan. So originally we were like, we're gonna do a small facility that also helps with Bluefin.
Well, pre-plan is always, we were waiting to see on how the map rolls out. That will really dictate our plans. But our big aim was to do Bluefin stuff this war. And unfortunately, the map rolled out in a way that we really did not want to run a Bluefin this war. We prefer to run in the eastern rivers because it's a lot safer. If you have to exit out of the pond into the Western Ocean, it's quite hard to do massive Bluefin operations. You need big escorts. You're very vulnerable. And then it just so happened that Westgate rolled probably one of the best BT layouts it could have given us, which is when we went all in on making the BT Mega Fag.
Yeah, I think it was JJ that was like, "Hey guys, there's cool oil in the same
JJ
house."
spotted it.
And so just looking at resources, it looked like a pretty much god roll.
Yeah, it's about as good as you can get, and we were expecting a lot of claims in Westgate for other groups, and we just ended up getting node after node in this hex.
Right.
Okay, yeah, so JJ pointed out that, so during our pre-plans, Battle Tank facility was always on the table, especially if it rolled a God roll. So when Westgate rolled all of the nodes that it did, which is 2 coal fields, 3 oil fields, 3 salvage fields, we decided that Westgate was going to be our target of operations for the war. And not only would we do BTs, we would do BTs at a crazy scale. We were very fortunate in that almost no other large regiments came to Westgate to contest any of these claims. It's just a matter of luck, because we never thought we would get every node in Westgate, or nearly every node. We ran through the bulk of the war was 2 oil fields, 3 salvage fields, and 2 coal fields.
So I want to go ahead and give Bob Ross early credit. Getting our claims down, day 1 claims, the Joes did really, really good at getting the salvage claims. One thing that they are really good at that we're not good at is getting contesting claims from regiments that don't respect sigil or established systems. I find that to be a weakness. I want to work with everybody. I want to help everybody. But at the end of the day, I don't like to have interregimental conflict within the same side, especially if they're a larger group, a more well-known group. If it's a small group too, like if it's a 5-man group, they can cause you a lot of headaches. We've seen that in the past where you'll contest a claim and then they'll build right on top of you. Maybe a random will build on top of you, and you'll just have a lot of issues with that. One of the big things to note is the coal field we did want was instantly claimed by Pink, but we had the kind of what is that? The superior claim? Priority claim. So we priority claimed that coal field, which matched the oil fields that we wanted, and Pink was very happy to move to Whitewick, and allowed us to connect our coal and oil together. So big shout out to Pink. Pink has wanted to help. We aren't labeling them as the main contributing force just because they're kind of like Slay. They sent a couple members to help, but it wasn't really their main focus in the war. I don't believe. Like they had other focuses within the war.
Nope, but they did work with us to allow us to modify the field to what we needed it for. So huge shout outs to those guys for working with us.
Absolutely, and they produced a lot of concrete too that
they did.
The Joes ended up using. We used a lot of component concrete, which we're on a coal field, but you still want to run component concrete so you don't have to shift. We ran, because we're coal and oil, we don't need to run the liquefiers at all, and we don't want to run liquefiers, right? Like, no.
We also had a very huge target for our assembly materials during Tier 2. So our coke machines were working incredibly hard for all of Tier 2, which is another part we could go into about like the strategy of how we do all of this.
Yeah, let's run to the coal field.
How we resource farm.
Let's talk about the layout of the coal field. So, I know, I think JJ placed most of the buildings here.
Yeah, JJ, shouts out to JJ. He did the bulk of building throughout all of Westgate. All of these systems worked incredibly well.
Right.
He built the buildings. He laid out the foundations for everything. He built the train network. The bulk of the train network. And yeah, coal field is pretty simple. It's just throw down your coke furnaces and let them go burr. During Tier 2, we ran 5 of these things, pretty much nonstop through all of Tier 2, and that was just to accumulate sulfur later on in Tier 3, and to make as many assembly 1s as possible during Tier 2. So that way, once battle tanks RSCs unlocked, we could just start immediate production of assembly 5s with a massive backlog.
Which, you know, and this is one of the differences. I'll go ahead and throw out, like, Knght and Joe has differences, which I absolutely love. That we're not the same regiment. We do have differences, but we work so well together this war. Where they had strengths that we didn't have, and we had strengths that, you know, they don't have. One of the biggest things that we noticed right off the start with Joe's is that they're territorial. They're super picky on who has what job, and the beam guy will not be the MSUP guy. Like, the beam guy is the beam guy, the MSUP guy is the MSUP guy. The Naboic is, like, when there's any disputes with other regiments, like, they're just like, yep, that's Naboic's job. And they're very, very territorial. Each person is specialized over there, where with us, we're bouncy. We're, hey, what needs done right now? What task am I needing to do? And so all of our guys kind of got that. One of the other differences that we also noticed is we like to stockpile resources early on. I think, Doom, you're the one that noticed this, where the Joes just like to keep a steady burn. We like to burn through our materials, and they want to keep a steady burn. So our plan, you know, when the numbers actually got crunched, when we got everything we got, then we kind of discussed what could get built where and what our numbers were. I think, Doom, you did the first number crunch, and I don't know if you made me aware of the numbers, but I remember when Wujangles and the Joes were on, they discussed, and they're like, yeah, 60 BTs a day actually looks reasonable for what we're doing. And everybody was like, is that number actually right? Like, we were all second guessing. And I think JJ was like, yeah, I'm pretty sure that's the numbers that Doom had.
Yeah, so what had happened was Joe's had went and started crunching to figure out what could be physically, like, what is the maximum capacity of this thing. And so the Joes did a lot of that calculation, and then we went and double checked it, and we started figuring out, okay, we can actually, this isn't a unrealistic target. If we stay productive for the entire war, we can hit these types of numbers pretty consistently.
I do want to put a reminder, that is also 60 BTs. That's not including if you had mixed in SHTs, SPGs, RSCs.
Right. So that's, yeah. So those subtract, like 60 BTs is like the minimum, and then like an SPG costs what, 3 or 4 times what a BT costs. It's ridiculous with the costs that you start to get. You'll definitely have to let Elf know that I can't hear him. I have all audio turned off. I will wave at him. So Elf, dude, I love our regiment where Elf and Harry came in at the last minute to help us carry through our goals. They were like a fresh breath there. So big shout out to them. But yeah, so anyway, so we're looking at the thing, and it's like 60 BTs is possible. I know I was laying out the encampments around potentially our build area, and when they said 60 BTs, I was like, yeah, I'm gonna expand that. So I was like, that must mean we need the entire field.
Right.
So I was like, okay, let me just. I think I did like a quarter of the field, and then whenever I realized that we were looking at 60 BTs, I was like, that's the entire field. The number sounds extremely shocking. So, and when we say 60 BTs, and Tiger's pointed this out, that's what we're running without a deficit. But we're building up stockpiles before that, so we're able to also produce SPGs and super heavy tanks. Like we're going to start burning through that. RSCs burn at the same rate as BTs, correct? I think.
Correct.
Okay. It's kind of sad seeing decay, but this decay is just because we've turned everything off. This is actually a really cool war where we were kind of we get to say goodbye to our facility one last time. Like this is in what?
Yeah, just due to us having a hard cutoff. This war is ending by Deadman decree. So
it's like it's ending in It's ending in 17 hours. So we already have the materials we need. This place doesn't really serve a purpose. There's no need to farm anything. This is the first time that we've had a hard cutoff. Like a lot of times, Doom, you were just mentioning you're looking at the last 2 victory points for 5 days, being like, okay, is this it?
Is it over? Did we win?
And you're letting things decay, and you're trying not to let things decay, but at the same time you want to let things decay, because like at the end of the day, like you can put MSUPs in there and like overfill it, and then it's like I overfilled those MSUPs. I should not have put 10,000 MSUPs in that tunnel. Like that's good for another week. I'm gonna pick you up, Tigers. So what I guess what did you guys think of the facility with the numbers? I mean, 60 BTs. Like
I say it scales with manpower. If we had more manpower, we could
Yeah, we could have gone even harder in this build, which is the crazy part.
Yeah,
if you have this much resource, it's just a manpower game at that point.
Right, and
it's really.
Go ahead.
I was just saying, it's really weird. You think that going this large, everybody would be like completely burnt out, which I mean, like a couple of our main builders, like yeah, it hits them rough because they're the ones that had to think about everything. But everybody else, like, we just want to see that number go burr. Like we don't care. Like everyone loves it.
Yeah. And with this setup, even though this is a manpower game, it's crazy how productive any person working at this facility really was. The coal field was ran exclusively off oil power, which means every coke clear is just a direct translation into battle tanks. Because generally at a coal field, you have to throw lots of coal into either liquids, some combination of liquids. A lot of your coal will end up going to power when you're going this big. Luckily for us, we had an entire oil field with tier 3 frackers that we could use exclusively for power.
We had over 2 oil fields.
Yep, yeah. We had two and a third oil fields. Fire gave us another pump, which we actually needed to complete this build.
Yeah. Now, and we could have made more use out of Pink's field. And that would have
manpower problem we're talking about.
That's the manpower problem, exactly. And like running, I can't imagine running a pipeline even further south to that.
We did find a good role for the Pink field, which was we just started eating it and shifting it directly into our other coal field. We were just taking coal over there, producing more coke, and bringing that coke into our other coke facility.
Well, and that's utilizing it for the offshore oil rig.
That as well.
Yeah, I was going to say
almost all of our coal to the offshore went to the enriched oil.
Yeah, Dufro did a really good job at just pumping that coal into the oil refinery or platform. That offshore was massive. I mean, like that's another thing that made this place just insane. I don't think that offshore ever got blown up.
It never got topped, that's for sure. I I never saw it get blown up either.
I know. Yeah, that was actually really strong. We have total of 3 bowheads, which is insane. We'll talk about how we got the third one, because that's I really want to get into that. M-subs. So, like I said, so Knight took care of the northern part of the bulwark. Everything north of the bulwark was pretty much managed by Knight. There's a small storm cannon base right here that the Joes built, and there's Lost Partition that I think Mr. Spiky from the Joes built. And then we also helped with the Pinks field and the offshore, but for the most part, north of the bulwark was Knight, south of the bulwark was Joe's. TL Slay was also north of the bulwark with us. I didn't expect the manpower going into this, but we ended up, when we were 60 BTs, that perked everybody's ears, and I think everybody got excited. And unfortunately, we have some really big pumpers, some really amazing guys that was not able to participate in this war. I know Novak has he just had a child, so yeah. Yeah, we have several people that I was like, man, if we would have had these guys too, it would have just, I don't know, I think I shudder to think, because these are giga farmers. I love everybody, but somebody like Doom is a giga farmer, JJ is a giga farmer, Tigers, you're a giga farmer too. All of you guys, just looking at your guys' numbers are way above what the average person should be. Supply value delivered 18 million, although that's not your top number. Yeah, you guys definitely all threw in work. So, well done, everybody. This is our salvage field that we use to keep the north part alive. Basically, somebody sits on the mini train here, pulls out all of the salvage, throws them into these 2 buildings. We have a third building that we can make CMATs in, but it takes 15 clears of this salvage field to produce enough M-subs to keep the north part alive. We're looking at about 120,000 M-subs to keep north of the bulwark alive, and the Joes had the south of the bulwark, which took another 100,000. Man.
So rough numbers, speaking of M-subs, rough numbers is throughout the full war, we've estimated around 5.6 million M-subs using about 42 million salvage.
That's what Westgate has cost.
Just in M-subs.
Yeah. Now, this is one of the oil wells, or one of the parts where we used the oil well from fire to pump that salvage field.
Come over, I'll show you which one we're using.
So this is not ours, this is Fire's. So definitely, a little bit different build than.
They are a little bit newer of a group, so they did not know the perfect mechanics of pipes, but they got it to work.
Well,
either way, they gave us this last electric oil well, which we actually needed. We were running into oil problems, so especially when tier 3 popped. So awesome that they were able to give us this well.
Yeah. Fire is a 2-man regiment, him and his brother, and I was actually happy that it was a 2-man group that took this over than our large regiment, and they just wanted to run a ammo fac out of this place, like a gas station ammo fac, and that made me happy because it meant less competition for our cool field, and all just resources in general. yeah, and it doesn't really hurt us. Their building is definitely, you can get through here. Partisans can get through here extremely easy. But and then some of the oil goes into our system. We'll go to the north here. One thing about MSUPs though, two things. One, this is our MSUP train, so what we end up doing is taking this train to the MSUP field. And then we can deliver these MSUPs. The MSUPs go into the infantry car trains, and then you can interact. Go ahead and switch to the second seat there, Dim. You can interact with the MSUP tunnels, and you can interact with the cores or factory buildings. So if I drive this forward, a lot of people don't realize this. We use the large train. You can do this with the small train too, but it goes a lot faster, and you can carry a lot more. So you can pull directly into your infantry car trains. You're limited at 3 unless you have it wrapped because of distance, and then you can submit, straight to the tunnel or MSUP.
This is an incredibly powerful tool if you are ever planning on making large builds or builds where you have a lot of distance from your MSUPs within Hex. This is a awesome solution to being able to MSUP large amounts of territory.
Yeah. Another thing that we did with MSUPs, well, the more I think about this, the more I have to say about MSUPs. Tierlock did a really important thing, and he wanted, like, day 1 and 2 that we fill up MSUPs to the max, and then that kept us ahead, and then we just stayed ahead all war. And if we would have fallen behind, this place, I don't know if we could have caught up. Like, that was my big fear. Doom, you really put that into perspective with me, and then once you put the fear of God in me, I was like, yep, we are not letting this fall. Once we kind of did a calculation on how many times the Holdfast salvage had to clear just to keep enough MSUPs on, I made a channel in our Discord, and every time that field was up and available and somebody farmed it, they would type in clear. So it takes 50 minutes for a field to spawn and 10 minutes to clear it on the mini train. So about every hour, minus our off hours, it was cleared. And on our off hours, we still had people on, but they were doing, the coal or other duties. Just as long as we cleared it 16 times at least a day was our big concern.
Yeah, that said, we had some backup emergency MSUP generation power, but we never wanted to resort to that. We had the Kingstone double mine and the Lord's Mouth double mine as well to be able to use, but those are not as easy to access the MSUPs. And on top of that, the Kingstone double mine's job was to just produce salvage for the coal field to make assembly materials 1 and 2. So if we ever had to tap that to make MSUPs, it was always kind of it was a shooting ourselves in the foot moment. So it was awesome that we were able to keep Holdfast cleared as much as we did, so we didn't have to tap into that salvage.
Yeah, and so, like, this large rail coming to the relic base here is for the MSUP train. It kind of looks weird, but that's the purpose.
Yep, and if you take a look at the map, basically this entire hex is designed to take the MSUP train. That is a big consideration on when we do designs, especially the scale. We design around that MSUP train. We want to make sure that since we have so many MSUPs that have to be moved, it's as easy as possible to complete that task.
So let me turn on bases. Then MSUP tunnels. And so, yeah, you'll see that there's a lot of correlation between MSUP tunnels, bunker bases, and the rail line. That now one of the big things with the rail line too is we like to keep private rails, and we did have that for a while where this Longstone rail was private, but eventually we did have connections made up to Ranchers Fast and down here.
The Kingstone Depot. Shout out to Sam for helping us keep, and everybody that fought in the West. Shout out to everybody that kept Fairneck Coast alive, because the enemies were at the gates.
Yeah, so that was another thing. Fairneck was going back and forth. There was definitely a point where Jade Cove was the front line. This was the river. The front, I guess, never came past the river except once, where they broke into Maka's Keening, which I'm going to talk about that later with Tierlock, where we barely saved that with a ton of our logi, and then once we kind of finished with our stockpile, then Sam and some of the big regiments, FLA came and finished that fight. And that, like, their positioning up in this hex, CAF did a really good job. Telephone did a really good job. I believe they targeted this lane specifically because of us, or at least McLovin talked about, that this was one of the few superpowers. One of the things that I like to talk about with Knight is that we have kind of this playstyle where for the first part of the war, for the first 2 or 3 weeks of the war, you don't know that we exist. We don't do anything. And then when BTs unlock or something, the Bluefin unlocks, then we become a WLL size force impact on the war, or a T3C or FMET. So at first we don't impact the war, and if it's a short war, we don't make that kind of impact. But if it goes long, we become a massive force, and that's just a lot of our playstyle. Is we build up early reserves, and then when it gets to the late, we burn through those and continue. Now, we built how many large pads? 49 large pads, correct?
49.
And 4 of those are train pads. That comes out to, 60 BTs a day if you're having them print nonstop, right?
Yeah. Now, there was an issue there where we always say we like to equivocate everything into just what it would cost if you made it all as battle tanks. Obviously, we made a lot of battle tanks, but we wanted to make everything out of this facility. We knew that this would be the most productive facility in Foxhole history in terms of large pads, so we wanted to make sure that there was access to the faction for every sort of heavy tank railstorm cannons. We wanted to make sure that nobody had to create a facility and slave all war to make 2 battle tanks. We wanted to make sure that whatever it was that the public wanted, they would have access to. So,
yeah, and
massive. We got BTs, we made BTDs, we made everything.
Everything was 100% free. Only cost was just rares to help make sure we could help make the next one.
Yeah. So
we
that's
charge rares for our railstorm cannons and for SHDs, and the cost was at cost. So an SHD only cost 60 rares. Very cheap, very easy to do.
So that's part of my philosophy, and Knight, and we saw Joe's operating the same way. That's what made us want to work with them, is that we believe that a frontline guy does not necessarily enjoy farming for components, and when you're telling this frontline tanker, you got to pay 10,000 components to build a BT for him. Like, you're not giving that BT to somebody that exclusively likes to play battle tanks, or he's going to get burnt out because he has to farm for that, or like. And I definitely get that. There's also I believe T3C has the counter argument to that, where you don't feel like you have the worth, like you didn't put any effort into it, which is definitely a fair point to make. But I would rather see somebody that wants to play front line and not farm get the toys that he wants to play with.
Yeah, and we want to make this as simple as possible. We don't think that these heavy toys should exclusively be used by advanced players that know all the ins and outs of this game. We want sergeants to jump in a battle tank and not be terrified. We want them to try it out and just learn how these kind of toys work, and just get the chance to experience them without a big regiment.
The reason we do so much public stuff is so that the gear fear is not as high. If people don't have gear fear, they don't have it to hang up in a crane.
Yeah, gear fear, that's actually another major part. And we talk about people are like, why do you just give BTs to sergeants? Like, you give them the brief, like, make sure you wear the gas mask filters, and a lot of times if they don't know how to take it off the pad and fuel it, they're not going to get a BT. I mean, part of the deal is that they kind of know how to do all of that, right? We don't hold their hand on that.
Figure it out.
Yeah, it's like, okay, this is the BT. Now you go figure out where you're getting your shells and your fuel. And if they can get that part, because a BT is definitely a different beast. And if they can figure that out, they can figure the rest out. But if they run directly into enemy fire and die, like, they've soaked up damage that they've soaked up resources, so it's still worth it at the end, especially when these things are just mass produced.
Also,
we take out that equation of these being scarce objects by doing this kind of thing. There will be more battle tanks. There will always be more battle tanks, so it's not a big issue if people die.
You talk about though the like scarcity and like people being the gear fear. I mean, it's like you have these smaller groups that are gonna spend literally 2 or 3 of them are gonna spend a week grinding to make one or two BTs, and it's a grind for them. But then when you're doing it this massive a production, it's like making printing out BTs for us is just nothing.
Yeah, that's one coal wipe. It's legitimately one coal node. One coal wipe gives you more than one battle tank. Every time we wipe that coal field, that's just making a battle tank.
Yeah, so
because the scale that we do this on is much more efficient. If you think about a small group with a single coal field, they have to gather salvage from all around their hex. They have to gather components all around their hex. They have to burn their coal, turn that into power to power all of their buildings.
Sulfur.
They have to go gather sulfur. They have to do all of these operations, where in our system, these are very simple loops.
So a correction about your numbers. I believe you'll have to change this, but you said a coal wipe is a BT. Isn't that only if that's a coal node, if you're powering it off of coal? Like, that changes if you're powering it off of oil.
Yeah, exactly. Once you're powering it off of oil, it's more than a battle tank's worth of steel being produced out of that. Not just steel, but assembly ones and all of that. So it's over a battle tank.
And I only know these numbers because I hear Doom and JJ and Cheerlock quote this stuff, and I really love hearing all of these guys talk about the numbers. And like I said, when they told me 60 BTs, I was like, okay, let's do it. Like, in my head, I'm not doing the numbers. I'm letting them do the numbers. I'm trusting them, and I'm like, my job as the leader is to help them with their craziness, just to facilitate. Well, let them do as crazy as possible, and try to push everybody towards that same goal, and then a lot of times what I do is I pick up the gaps. So in this war, I did defense building, which I tried out as a new technique, and this is one of the first. I would say we had 3 major challenges, and this is definitely one of the biggest challenges that we were afraid of. Fortunately, talking to Squid, I knew Squid was going to be taking off this war, so I was not worried about the number 1 partisan guy hunting us. I know he would have wanted this facility. Like this is the biggest target that there ever has been. There's never been a facility this large before. I mean, I'm not saying that to brag, but you can only have one cohesive facility like this when the entire hex is working towards one goal. And one of the things about Joe's is they're not running a separate facility. Like, they're not running their own engineering center, their own forges, their own stuff. Everything they have is geared specifically for them to pump into what we're doing. So it's one giant facility, and none of our stuff is doing what the Joe's is supposed to be doing, necessarily. But partisans. So I took care of the defense building. Our biggest strength isn't our defenses this war, it was our active defense. We had somebody on 24/7. General King was honestly one of my favorite people for this, where he just heard somebody upgrade something.
Same.
Yeah, there's somebody over there. That's funny. But I gotta get I'm just curious to see what he's upgrading. But anyways, General King was like active on the defenses. I know Doom, you did a really good job at like jumping on parachute, TSO parachute. I know every time you killed him, you got excited, and you're like, "Yeah, I killed parachute before you even got in the hex this time."
A Shapiro.
Yeah, we had several guys. The Legio guy, I QRF'd him outside the hex before he could even get in the hex quite a few times. And I think the last time I saw him, he just got frustrated, and I hadn't seen him after that.
As a reminder, we do need to talk about the intel leaks, partisan house, and the alting situation.
Yeah,
As a reminder.
Absolutely. We'll dude, that's the drama that I really want to get into. But we'll build up to that.
Okay.
One of the big things with active defenses is the vision. We had everything lit up, even outside the hex. So when they came in, if there was a dot that came in, we were on top of that. We are not using WAPs or Skynet or anything like that, but we did really good with active defenses. Like I said, General King, the Slay Boys, if you know Slay, like, they were our main active defense force. That was a large part of what they did. And then another
time learning the way they're coming in from multiple hexes and stopping them 2 hexes away.
Yeah, and then I'll also get in this later with Tierlock, but Tierlock did really good with mines. There are a number of times we just chased them into the minefield and watched them die. So I definitely enjoyed that. But let's get into the intel leaks. So as far as intel leaks go, I have a friend on the Warden side that I trust. It's not like I'm sharing information about what we're doing, and he has to keep it secret. He's also a facility guy on the warden side, so it's like, it's like I kind of was like, this is a meme, and I sent him the meme of what we were planning, and maybe I'll pop that up here, but I sent him that, and he was just like, WTF, surely you guys aren't doing this. And it's fun to be able to bounce stuff off of your rival without getting any information. We weren't sharing classified stuff. We weren't like saying this is where we are or anything. But he did let us know early that the meme that I had sent him had already gotten to him from another source on the warden side. And so that part I found very, very interesting.
Yeah, we discovered that on day 2, there was already a thread about our plans. They knew very detailed information about what we were doing and where we were doing it, including pad counts. So there was a very early leak with specific detailed plans on what and how we were doing it.
Right, and that was before kind of anything went out. Now, I do want to say, for the most part, the regiments and different groups on the Kali's side did extremely well keeping their mouth shut. Like, I was watching Reddit, and there were a couple of people that posted the map of Westgate unintentionally because they were doing a tank drop or something, and every time they did that, I would cringe a little on side because they would show defenses or no defenses, and I'm like, oh no, that's not good. But outside of that, I think everybody did really well keeping this kind of a secret. There were a few humble brags about, we have a mass BT production MPF facility out the Kali side.
Yeah, I mean, and there was a big internal debate on keeping things secret, trying to postpone the intel leaks. At the end of the day, we decided that if we're doing a project that's this large in scale, we need to let people know early on, because we didn't want tons of groups basically doing duplicated things, trying to build battle tank facilities when we knew we would have enough to feed everybody.
Yeah, and that goes back to something I was just going to talk earlier about Bob Ross. Bob Ross did a really good job at letting Som and some of the other guys know what we were planning, and they were like, okay, if you guys are doing this, we're not running a BT factory. We're going to commit to the front line. We're going to commit to other areas. Right. There was one regiment that came to us, and they were like, you ruined our plans. We were going to sell BTs, but if you're doing this, then we're not able to sell BTs because you're offering them at free. Well,
that is quite helpful too. If people have big plans, and if we can let them know early on, hey, don't waste your efforts on this. Spend your time doing other things instead of just LARPing like we are.
Yeah.
It helps out the front lines. It helps everybody out.
Yeah, and then another thing is we did change the way we do order systems within our BT production. Typically, we would take an order, and we would put your name on a BT and let you know when it was producing, and it was a big ordeal, big accounting system. And for me, that took all of my time and effort. In this war, I knew I would not have that time and effort because there were other areas that needed my attention, like these ops bunkers that are now dead were unfueled. They're probably just unfueled. It's end of war, so I don't really care. Oh, I can't talk to this guy. I'm sorry. So with our BT production, one of the big changes that we did, and I didn't get everybody on the same page, is that there are no ordering systems for BTs or BTDs. It's first come, first serve. SPGs, we want these to go into the hands of groups that are competent. JJ made the brilliant suggestion after we started production to always have 4 on hand that we can just loan out, because at the end of the day, a BT on a crane is not doing anything, but a BT that's on a crane or SPG that's on a crane that gets taken down, used, and comes back, like, that's way more effective. Especially, and this BT is frozen, so this was another big part of the challenges that we faced, which was tier 5 snowstorm. I'll let you talk a little bit about that, Dim. I feel like I've talked a little much.
Yeah, hi. My name is Doom. I'm the one who made the tier 5 snowstorm be a monumental challenge to our facility.
It happened and start a matter of 5 seconds after the first BT rolled off a pad. Definitely not coincidence.
It started snowing as the first BT finished. The tier 5 storm happened when we destroyed Hubbard's.
This is true.
Oh yeah, we destroyed Hubbard's Engineering Center. That was fun. It was us and the Joes and Telephone. Mainly it was the Joes and Telephone, but we're all part of the same group, so I'm going to throw us in there.
We had a lot of guys out there on the ship helping.
So it started snowing as soon as we took the first BT off, and Boy suggested that we insulate our pipes. And what did you tell Mr. Boy when he suggested that we?
Oh, so it wasn't just Mr. Voy. Also, the Joes were like, "Hey guys, the snow is getting really bad. We're gonna have it looks like we can get tier 5 storms." Now, I don't know how many people have experienced tier 5 snowstorms. Knight has never, in any of our facility builds, ever gotten to the frozen pipe tier 5 storm. So my suggestion was, let's not build 1 million pipes, because you have to build 1 million pipes in order to insulate all your pipes. So my brilliant idea was, we can't get hit by tier 5 storm because we are invincible. We are the strongest facility ever, and we won't get hit by a tier 5 storm because it's never happened to us. And lo and behold, what happened this war? Over 24 hours of tier 5 storm.
Yeah, we got hit by 2 tier 5 storms. So the first tier 5 storm we got hit by, and I remember Lloyd, Dufro, and there's another random guy that ended up helping insulate the core pipes to the salvage field, and that ended up absolutely being a big deal. But that snowstorm lasted 5 or 6 hours, and it was over. And we're like, okay, we survived a tier 5 snowstorm. Definitely no need to insulate pipes now. I mean, there's only been 1 snowstorm since weather stations came out in my memory, and it hit the same place. It hit Origin, it hit right around here, but I don't remember there being a tier 5 snowstorm outside of that in recent wars. So getting hit by a second snowstorm, it definitely halted our production. We had a lot of frozen stuff. We had a lot of issues. It definitely sucks to have all of your vehicles frozen and trying to use a flamethrower to unfreeze them, and then just having
everything out. Yeah. And
then you have to have BMATs to repair it. Campfires also work. It just takes a lot more effort. There were definitely a lot of people that were like, if this would have lasted any longer, it would have burnt us all the way out. That tier 5 snowstorm, it definitely hurt morale. I know immediately after that snowstorm ended, our manpower dropped to 20%. And then after that,
so that is accurate.
Yeah, I would say, and then immediately after the snowstorm, I was like, okay, Brutish made the suggestion. He's like, we're not all on the same page anymore, and we just had the snowstorm. It was like, okay, we need to re-rally. We had the meeting, redid everything, and I feel like we got back on board. We got some fresh blood back into the war that hadn't been there at the start. So like Elf and Harry were able to come back in, and yeah, we ended up doing really well. Now a lot of times the pads weren't running 24/7, but we were still maintaining that 60 BT at least a day. Tigers, are you still here?
Yes.
So effectively, do you remember what our BT count was?
So our final count.
Just effective count. Do you know what the effective count of BTs were?
So our effective count would have been 790 if we had the pads to make that many per how much material we made.
Okay, so material made equals 790,
790.
which comes out to what? 79 BTs?
174 BTs we made.
100 no per day. What was our per day?
Oh, I think it was 99 a day basically.
Okay, and that's with what? 10 days of BT production? 9 days?
It's like 7.5 days.
Okay.
8 days.
Yeah, because we can't really count the final day because we would be producing, but
So today as we're talking is day number 8.
yeah, and so basically what's on the pads now is what's final cooking. We're not going to put anything more on the pads. Once these are finished, they're finished and they'll go out. How many SPGs are cooking right now?
29.
So we currently have 29 SPGs cooking. That's an insane number.
14 BTs.
We didn't pick that number by accident. We did pick the SPG number specifically so that we have the most SPGs ever produced in one war. And mind you, the SPGs that were produced in that war lasted 3 weeks of BT unlock?
They had just over 21 days of production as we just talked about.
And
this
so,
is day 8.
Yeah, so we're only on 8 days of production, and again, you can't really count day 9, which will begin tomorrow, because we could throw stuff on the pad and cook it, but it doesn't get finished, and we could claim those numbers, but I feel like that's cheating. Although we might end up throwing more stuff on the pads.
We don't have it. We stopped production of materials.
Okay.
After we got all these started.
I'm gonna throw stuff on the pads just to throw it on the pads.
That's what I've been doing with the battle trains.
Can't stop me. What is there? So is there anything outside of alting that we missed?
I think it would just be the alting incident at this point.
All right.
In regards to that topic.
So the alting was a lot of fun. I'm just gonna.
Yeah, it was so fun.
Yeah. So early on in the war, we start making massive stockpiles. We had some forges full of A1s.
It was 20. We had 20 to 25,000 AM1s.
Wow, we had more than that, but we had them in different buildings.
Yeah. Well,
I want to say how many forges? Yeah, probably like 5 or 6
We have
forges.
5 forges.
Yeah. Anyways, this Russian group that built over here. So I'll also point out on the map. This is not ours. This is not ours. This is UCF. This is Psalms. This is Joes. This is a bunch of Russian groups. This is a group that wanted to export salvage. This is Joe's. This is not us either. This wasn't us. There's something there. This is Pink, and all of this is Joe's, and I think that covers it. There's a little.
You also might recognize this video from Reddit, or this base from Reddit.
Oh yeah, this base in front of us.
Yes.
Yeah, so I'll give you guys the full story. Let me open up my DMs here. Artemis. Oop. So I get a message from this guy, and he's like, he's kind of a leader of a small regiment. He's Russian, and he was like, we need 4 fields of coal a day. And I immediately let him know what our plans were, and I was like, we're planning on doing 60 BTs a day here. That includes RSCs, SPGs, super heavy tanks. And he told me, yeah, he says, this is it. He says, we want to make BTs and 1 to 2 Aries too. And I was like, okay, I will make sure. And he still comes back with, he needs to have 4 fields a day. And I was like, okay, I'll give you 2 super heavy tanks. Like I'll just give you the super heavy tanks, and as many BTs as you want. I'll hold them back for you. Like, I know you're in the same hex. Like we'll make them, and I'll just hold these back for you. And he's like, yeah, we don't need free stuff. We want to make it ourselves. We're kind of Factorio. And he talks about coming from Charlie and how successful he was on Charlie. And so I just suggested he find another location if that was what he was intending. Like, he had just started building here. But like, I also suggested that he works with us. And I will have, the DMs here if you want to pause. But I was like, you can work with us. We don't put any quotas on anybody. Like, even our salvage field, like, we need to make sure that's wiped 16 times a day, but I'm not ordering anybody to go do that. Like, we do that because we make numbers go burr. We don't do that because it's a requirement. When somebody is starting to fail in one aspect, it's like we all help, and we help carry the weight. And so this guy was basically saying, if we can't guarantee him 4 fields a wipe specifically to him, then some bad stuff would happen. And again, I basically told him I'm not stopping him from farming the field, but I cannot stop farming it. Like, I can't just stop farming. Like, I can't tell my guys, all right, guys, it's 4 a.m. Time to let the Russians farm the field. We're not allowed to touch the field for the next 4 hours. Like, that to me doesn't make sense. So I was like, we're just going to continue to hit this field. I know my guys are really big. Like, you can farm at the same time. It's probably not going to be, beneficial for us. And he was the only person
the biggest issue was he wanted a train line when we were like, well, we have you truck access, flatbed access.
Well, that he didn't even, so that could have been an issue. But he did not, that was not part of our negotiations at all. Like, that wasn't his thing. It was specifically about not being able to farm the field.
Wipe the fields.
The fields. The train line thing would have been a separate issue, and it would have definitely hurt us a lot more. Because we prefer private tracks. We prefer not having switches if you can avoid them. We're running 20 trains a day at least. Like it ends up hurting us if you're connected to a private rail. And then, if we're trying to farm it and you have a big train on the way too, that's a big deal too. Lots of issues. Train, it's also not designed to easily access for a train. Train would have to park on the outside here. So definitely a lot of issues. Oh, and this isn't us. This is Firespace. So we come to the conclusion, that it's just not going to work out for either of us. He tells me that bad things are going to happen. He said that he was going to post on Reddit and let Reddit decide. And I told him, I said, this is a big project that we're working on. Probably wouldn't be the best to leak that kind of intel. One thing I do have to say this guy did well is he seemed to respect that. He's like, yeah, posting on Reddit is a bad idea. The next day, a colleague escorted 2 wardens in. He had a box filled with hydras at our coal field, and we noticed a bunch of vision went down. We didn't do anything about it. That was kind of our wake up moment too, that vision should not have gone down, and that is a known,
especially with no response.
Yeah, that's a known tactic of Partisan House before they hit you, and that's something we should have immediately QRF'd. And it was a wake up moment. It was definitely one of these things where it's like, okay, vision went down, and now there were a couple of times that vision went down, and I immediately went back, and I didn't just rebuild 1 obs, I built 2, like immediately. I would carry a radio backpack and just stand over there and hide. Like I was ready for Partisan House to come. But this guy ended up, we had 2 guys on the field, coal field here. The collie came up. He was a no rank, no stat guy, I believe.
No,
did he have sets?
No stats, but he did have a rank.
Okay, so he had a Chinese character name. Killed the guys at the field. We're like, immediately like, what just happened? Like, we just got team killed. Like, and then the kaboomies started. 2 of our forges got blown and dehusked. Again, they had 15 hydras at the ready. And so immediately I talked to this guy and I'm like, WTF, why'd you ult us, bro? Because he was the only one that's, mad at us. It wasn't that hard to figure it out. And he kind of was like, well, you're not giving me the field wipes. Like you're being greedy. You're not allowing me to run my own little facility. And again, I'm not stopping him. And I was like, I'm not stopping you from any of that. I was like, we're willing to work together, willing to work with you, like all of this stuff. And finally it's just like, okay, well, what about this? And I already suggested this loosely to him once. I was like, what if we gave you the materials to make the super heavies and the BTDs yourself? Like, you don't do anything, but we transport the materials to you at our own. And I was going to do this myself at my own expense, and like, you just push the print button on your own pad yourself. And he was like, yes, but this sounds like a trap. And I was like, I was beside myself, because this is one of the very first things I offered the guy.
Yeah, it was basically the same offer, except they could press the print button.
Yeah, I mean, dude, I told them they could push the print button on our pads. Like, I was like,
Right.
there's no reason to. But yeah. So, anyways, he's like, this feels like a trap, but yes, we'll accept this. And not only that, but this guy also. So it wasn't him. It was one of these guys. Which is on right now. I believe it was this guy. Let's see.
15 MNH.
Yeah, and
That's his alt. That's one of his alt accounts.
yeah, it's 15 MSUPs, and so it's really interesting that they're on right now. But anyways, 15 MNH gets into. Now, I don't want this to be a witch hunt. So like, if you see these guys, they're cool now with us. Whatever. I mean, I'm still upset that they ulted us, and don't witch hunt them. But anyways, these guys. This guy went to all chat and started bragging about how he blew up 2 of our forges. I believe he was saying that in Russian. And he's like, I blew up 2 of their forges. Now they come up with a good deal and they're submissive to us now. And Tigers, do you have that? Can you send me any of that so I can, at least verify what I'm speaking here? Just any of that would be fine.
The translated quote was not about killing our forges. It's just that they had killed us, and
he killed 30,000. He killed 30,000 A1s. I believe he said 30,000 A1 specifically. Yeah.
They with him accommodating all of his resources are shared. Someone tries to private and he thinks they're here. You can feel with them. They got you on that message. If we didn't catch it, if we can just give everyone a short or
For the people.
Yeah. Can you send that to me? That screenshot. Do you have that?
I can do in it right now.
Perfect.
Parsons chat.
Perfect. Okay. I'll grab that and I'll plop this up there too with all of the overlays and gadgetry that I have at my disposal. So what ended up happening next was kind of comical. BT's unlocked. And I told the guy I would deliver him a super heavy tank worth of supplies day 1, day 2 I'd do a BTD, day 3 BTD, day 4 BT, day 5 BT, and then if they needed more, I would be willing to do more. And so on day 1, I get the stuff and I deliver it to him. I send him screenshots that I delivered it to him. And I, the only thing I told him was that he had to provide the rares himself. I wasn't going to be able to farm the rares for him, and he was accepting of that compromise. So, anyways, sent him that, and he definitely was. He accepted that. He was happy, they had a super heavy tank printing. One of our guys noticed a bunch of guys coming in. We QRF'd them. They almost killed their super heavy pad. They got it down to like 5% or something super low. And the guy talked to their neighbors who are part of like this shared coalition, and they were like, our guys were telling them, hey, you need to build more defenses. We barely
A group of partisans came in 2 different times that morning. We QRF'd for them, and then the third time, after the second time, we told them like, hey, you had to fix his defenses. Like, we can't keep QRFing. Like, we've got a lot of other stuff we have to do. And that third time happened that morning, and they brought in a large group, and it's all over. It's a video on Reddit. You can easily find it of the areas getting killed.
Yeah, it was UKR ended up being the group that took it out. They were the group that we said stopped before. And
Yeah, we had been warning our neighbors for much of the war because I know I personally stopped Partisan House twice from killing their base.
Yeah.
So this had been a persistent problem that they had been warned about, that they were very vulnerable to partisans, and they did not care. They would not even respond to at least my messages, letting them know that they were being targeted.
Right. Yeah, that was definitely something that. So this neighbor regiment of theirs did that, and then once they lost their super heavy, I messaged them and I was like, hey, we just saved your super heavy, and I was like, and then I was like, I just wanted to make sure that he knew that we didn't kill his super heavy, and so I sent him also the video of UKR. Fortunately, they posted that on Reddit. So after that, they had a bowhead. They decided to give us their bowhead, which, that's pretty cool. But 30,000 A1s that we lost is equivalent to 100 BTs. So we definitely lost a lot early. We definitely recovered from it. It's a souring feeling when this kind of stuff happens. It's interesting when you submit the proof, or what seems to be undeniable proof, especially the bragging part. But this isn't. I don't want this to be a dig against the devs, but I do wish that there was more player moderation, some kind of more something to keep people in check from this, or some kind of recovery
his alt accounts
system.
got banned. His main account has not been banned. He is still playing.
Well, and not only that, but it wasn't. They weren't banned off of this game, although I think they ended up getting banned off of this game. But the big thing was their accounts got deleted from Steam. Tigers, I guess, sent he runs a Hell Let Loose community, and he's used to dealing with griefers and people that shouldn't be playing video games. And anyways, he got their Steam accounts removed, which I found absolutely to be amazing. So that's where that story ends. I would like to see some kind of recovery system, but I guess that's just hopes and wishes. We've seen 11E lose a lot of stuff, and it would be nice. I know that the devs have a recovery system for seaports for anti-griefing, but I would like to see some kind of facility anti-griefing. And I know that would have to require somebody going in and saying, okay, this was actively alted. This was not just you had a hole in your defenses and somebody got through and killed an SPG on a crane. But that's where I'm at. How do you guys feel? So,
yeah, I mean, it sucks. It's been a perennial issue. Like you said, we watched 11E lose one of the largest BT facilities of all time to alts. I don't know what there is to be done about it. It would be awesome if we got some systems that could help there, because as of this moment, people can get away with this pretty much scot-free. They buy a couple accounts, they get to do whatever they want to do.
Right. And yeah, exactly. And their main accounts don't seem to get touched.
Yeah, but sometimes their mains don't even be bad.
What's wild to me as a newest player to start playing Foxhole compared to y'all, the player that's bragging in chat about it, that we have 100% evidence of him bragging about how he did this, every day since then, he has been in our hex. We see him in here on a daily basis. He's been reported probably over 150 times this war. No joke. He's been reported. We've probably had 20 to 30 tickets put in through the browser. And still, to this day, he still runs around. He was just in our hex earlier today.
Anybody is there anything left to say goodbye about this facility? Any cool things or key points that we've missed?
We could do a full rundown of how it actually works.
Yeah.
Like the entire loop.
Well, also total counts. I don't know if they'll be thrown up on the screen at all, but
go for it.
174 BTs, 45 BTDs, 41 SPGs, 13 SHTs, 10 RSCs. We also ended up making 25 locomotives, 2 blood tenders, and for the memes and the LARPers, we got 16 combat cars. Oh, I guess I can say some other crazy numbers. 78,000 steel, 280,000 pecans. That right there.
It's
And
crazy.
3.6 million CMATs.
There's never been a facility this size before. I mean, this is the largest facility, and this is what happens when the entire hex is organized on a single.
Yeah, we have serious doubts we will ever be able to recreate this, but if anybody is listening to this, we would also love to be able to do a project like this again.
Yeah.
Probably not soon.
I mean, the right resources has to lay out, and then people have to listen. I mean, so yeah, it's not, and I think that might be the secret on running one of these type of facilities, is you have to get everybody on the same page. Like we had, and this is another really cool thing, is we're competent, and we knew that Joe's was competent, and so we were like, okay, this is what we're planning to do, and this is what we need from you. And they were able to basically just connect into the same system. They probably built the salvage field different than what we would have, but they did it to where they had it worked for them, and they did it without overlapping jobs from what we're doing. Like they didn't have a guy making steel down there and then having to transport it up here.
It's like you talk about doing it again and what it would take. One of the big things that you have to remember is if you have a group that's competent enough to do this, they're not privatizing the fields. You gotta look at it as everything's free. Like everything we did, it took a lot of resources. Yes, it took a lot of fields, but we charged absolutely nothing for everything. Like everything, anybody could come and grab something. It did not matter who you were. We didn't care if a group brought 5 people and grabbed 5 different BTs. If you had all we required was one person to drive the BT away. That's all that was required.
Be competent enough to know how to fuel it, and like, if you did that, then boom, it's yours. Like that's all it took. Now I think what was really cool, and I wish I would have been there for the giveaways, but like right before the BTs and the SP or BTDs would finish printing, people would be there on the pad, standing there, ready to claim it for them. It's like, this one's mine.
They would wait 30 minutes, an hour, 2 hours sometimes for them.
And it's like, and we
did a good job queuing up, and like everyone would just go stand by the tank they wanted to claim, and that worked for everybody. There's always enough too.
There's no fights or arguments. It was actually quite nice.
We would always have more than what was needed for the moment too, which was also funny, like that they didn't actually have to come an hour beforehand. But yeah, it's fantastic. Worked out very, very well. I did want Naboik on this call. Naboik was the leader of Joes. Let's see. I never got him, but yeah, I think that would have been pretty cool. Having his voice here, having kind of his side.
The Practical Tigers? Sorry.
No.
Yeah, again, one of the really cool things is what I like about our group is just being able to mix and match jobs. Tigers, by the end of this, he started with just the TL tag, him and Brutish, but now they're rocking the Knght tag. A lot of times to work with us, we don't require anything. We don't require you wearing our tag. I don't really care about our tag that much. Like, at the end of the day, like, we're just here to vibe and have a good time and have fun. Like, if you're not having fun, then you're not
Yeah,
playing.
what we do does not mesh well with everyone. Mostly our group is a bunch of facility LARPers. We like to make number go up.
Yep.
To make numbers go burr, you had to have issues.
Yeah. And we have,
100%.
like, Slay works really strong with us. We're closer to sister. Like, they're not really a sister regiment, but they're like closer than that. I would feel. I know Teriyaki's.
Well, it seems like to me is they're y'all's frontline group as y'all are kind of the facility guys.
Exactly. That's how it feels. Is that the Slayers have become our frontline group, and we have become their facility group. And wherever they go, we go. Wherever we go, they go.
Yep, and it works because if we pick up members that they like to help with this stuff a little bit, but they mostly like to play on the front line, they have a home in Slay, and vice versa. If Slay have people that just want to sit down and grind facilities, like they had quite a few guys come help us out this war.
Yep.
They have a place to come play with the facility, so it really works quite well.
Exactly. It's like, oh, I like to farm salvage fields like one time a war. And it's like, perfect. Well, I will use you to clear the field one time. That one time is massive.
Also, shout out to Bob Ross.
Oh yeah.
Before this war ever started, Bob Ross reached out to me, Tigers and TL, and to bring us in on this project. It's been great. Really appreciate Knight, Slade, Joe, Pink, everyone who's helped and assisted us. This couldn't have been done without this group of people helping. It's just
That's
insane.
awesome.
I remember Bob when we first started messaging about it, he said, "Yeah, they're thinking about 25 large pads." I'm thinking, man, this is gonna be insane, like 25 large pads. Next thing you know, we have 49, and we're like, we could have done more.
Yeah. I do know that, the pads were. It did seem like there were a number of times the pads weren't fully cooking or off, but we were able to at least maintain that 60 BT quota. Like that was really, and this was something that we talked about internally, was what number of BTs versus BTDs do we make? We were definitely afraid of stalling a front line by creating too many BTDs. Like, you killed all of the tanks, now what do you have to push with? So there were different concerns we had, and I wanted to get to the point that we just had a massive stockpile of BTs, and then if you ever wanted a BT, you just come here to pick up a BT. It's like, I want to play in a BT, let me just log in and go to Holdfast, or not Holdfast, but Westgate, and see if they have a BT. By the way, you can pretty much guess that I cleared the fields most of the time. But what would you say you did mostly? Doom or Tigers, what did you spend the most time doing in this facility?
Seems like me and Doom, I don't want to answer for him, but I feel like we kind of did the mix of the same thing where we just jumped from item to item.
Yeah, not one specific thing. I know you guys were driving trains, mad lads.
Grinding out the coal field. Also, a huge shout out to JJ and Tier. I don't think any of this could have been possible without those two guys, man.
No.
They did a great job on designing and making everything work. It seriously would have been possible without these two guys.
Honestly, you could go through the list. You could go through Voy. You could go there's everybody put in weight. Everybody put in, even Wrath came in, and he's on this Foxhole hate trip right now where you don't ever see him in Foxhole. He plays other games, which is, he's part of the community. I don't say no to him, right? But he ended up coming when we were in dire needs of holding Farinac Coast, and he was one of the main reasons it didn't fall. And you can point out Griff. Griff did a good job too with that. Who is this guy? Jelly did a really good job at ending partisans from Westgate. We were able to just continuously get supplies in from Westgate to Farinac because Jelly was doing nothing but partisan hunting.
General King, partisans,
yeah, dude. I feel like it's impossible just to name one guy. And
then wealthy from Joe's with his almost 4 million materials gathered.
All right, Dim, where are you at? Are you still here?
He was.
Yeah, sorry about.
Oh, selling another BT. Love it.
It's talking to Wild. What's up?
All right, you ready to give a final tour?
Yeah, let's do some final tour. Call him.
I'm gonna let you drive, and so you know the system way better than I do. Although I think I could get away with it. You're the
Call him A. Let's go.
Oh, is that? Oh, I thought that was a UCF guy.
All right, so everything begins with the oil field. The oil field, we had to create a full piped LTS system in order for all of this to run, which means we're pumping 50 liters a second all the way down to the Longstone salvage fields. So let's start at the top oil field up here.
Yep.
Speaking of oil fields and pipeline, just a random, just wild number, 135 LTS stations that we have.
Yep, and we've gotten a ton of questions around why the LTS, and the answer to that is if we did not build this LTS system, we would have had to make, I think altogether, 7 individual pipelines running at max flow rate to get all of the fuel needed. So the LTS just allows us to do all of this cheaper. It saves us on MSUPs. It saves us on pipes produced. So right here at both of our main oil facts, we are running 3 frackers each, the steel upgrade, which a lot of the times people never even need to use frackers just because of how much oil you get. But this system uses a ridiculous amount of oil every hour.
Yeah, between what we use for material making, we used 83 million liters of oil, and just in power consumption, we used an estimated 28 million liters of oil. So over, what would that be? 100, almost 110 million oil.
Yep.
Is that what I'm thinking?
It's a crazy number. I lost our LTS pipeline. Where you at? Okay, runs through this way.
Yeah, you're following the water pipe. It kind of reminds me of Jurassic Park.
Yep, so these LTSs run all the way over here to our power system
That
for the
split.
pads.
It splits right here.
So we have a split. A lot of these 6 cracking units provide all of the power needed for our battle tank production area, which was, I forget how many megawatts.
25 power stations just for our large pads.
We have these power stations over here, power all the pads. And then we connect into the oil system over here, which is the second oil field. And then the second oil field is pumping most of this down to our triple salvage field and to our coal facility.
So just large pads alone was 392 megawatts. Or watts, whatever, megawatts, whatever they call it.
Yep.
And then in total, I did go through yesterday and count this up. We were utilizing, between everything we were using in the hex, 628 megawatts.
And so here we have one of our first oil splits. This runs to the reformers to provide a little bit of energy over here, and also to make assembly materials too, the petrol mats. So these reformers right here, the pipes go up to the coal field. And we had to do a lot of craziness to get a lot of these pipes down. I don't know how many brain cells were lost in the construction of this pipeline.
Large pipeline alone, I think, took us, what, like 10 to 15 hours?
Yeah,
Like
just
a bunch of us.
with a lot of people. A lot of man hours went into creating this pipeline. But so here we got all of our oil lines coming into the coal field. We had to bring both petrol and heavy oil over here for production, as well as enriched oil. We have 4 different petrochems set up to feed this monster, which was not the total amount of e-oil that we even needed. Even with 4 petrochemical plants, it was not enough e-oil. The offshore had to provide a lot of that. Go ahead, JJ.
No, you mentioned it.
Okay. Yep, so we have 2 petrochemicals here on the coal field. We have 1 petrochemical by our other sulfuric reactors at the pads. Since those produce a lot of sulfur, instead of moving all the sulfur, we just produce the petrochemical right there. Here's the double blast furnace, which we use to just crunch out PC mats for components. We never thought we'd have to get to that, but we were consuming so many PC mats at one time that we would have to burst produce.
And that recipe was about 15% of our PC mats.
Yep. And over here at Lost Partition, we have some of our train parking spots. Due to the terrain of Westgate, you've got a lot of flat parts, but you also have a ton of mountains, tons of trees, and other areas. So, since our pad area consumes so much of the flat land, we had to build parking spots essentially wherever we could. And over here, we can see the pipeline continuing all the way down to Joe's. And you can tell right now that all of this is backed up. The only reason this stuff is backed up is just because we are done producing. These things were slaughtering oil at a little under 50 liters a second for the bulk of this war. It's hard to say how many hours went into also just trying to figure out how to get all this oil to move. Because even once the pipeline was done, we were getting a very minor amount less flow rate than 15 liters. It was like 47.5 liters a second due to some mechanics we were unaware of. So we had to do a lot of jimmy rigging to get all of this oil to move across the map.
Which, that number sounds very small, but at the rate that we were producing stuff in a single day, a single 24-hour period, that could almost end your whole oil line.
Yeah, and the way these LTSs work is they draw from the bottom of the production line first, which meant Longstone was generally the priority in fuel received. We had to do a whole bunch of redesigning, and JJ did a lot of that redesign to get priority to other parts of the facility, which if he had not done, we would have ran into major issues.
Yeah. So the whole, like, all of you guys did extremely well. JJ definitely knows his piping. Tierlock figuring out the
flow rates
cost.
originally.
Yeah. Like, this is all, it's a group effort. Even in the planning, like, from you guys to Joe's to just bouncing off ideas from other people, like, it's hard to say one person could not plan all of this, I guess.
So here's where this giant liter per second comes from. Why we have to pump so much oil down to this place. We've got 9 reformers here and 3 cracking units. The bulk of the reformers is just to make CMATs at the double salvage field in Longstone to make all of our PC mats to create steel. These bad boys were pumping at a crazy rate. The CMAT production was insane this war, and it took a ton of effort out of the Joes and ourselves to ensure that those materials were being transferred at a timely place. I wish we had Joes here to talk about how their oil overflow system works. I'm not qualified to talk about how they built all this petrol flow out. Nonetheless, it is a very cool system. Where do these special issues come from? I don't remember these.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I did not remember infantry kit. Like, these are new, right? Like,
Large portion of the we just never used them.
Okay.
Oh, this one's got some 4 sniper rifle crates in it.
9 days ago. This has been here.
If we keep falling down. So from here we have the petrol and the heavy oil flowing down to the recyclers. We also have the sulfuric reactors here to power all of the Joe's buildings.
All in all, it was a total of 42 sulfuric reactors.
And if we come over here, we have a sulfur mine and a salvage mine. And we also built another petrochemical here that is plugged into the coal field. So that way we're able to take the sulfur from not only the sulfur mine, but from the sulfuric reactors. It just plugs right into here. So very minimal time moving the sulfur. It just hits here, it gets pumped, goes back straight to the coal field.
So there was a Chinese regiment, part of Pink's coalition, I believe, that wanted to really help. And yeah, I think that was their contribution.
Right here we have another, this is a enriched oil deposit point. So whenever we would go to the offshore, we were able to bring the boat directly to the port and offload the enriched oil directly into our pipeline. Very awesome. Minimal movement. And then finally we were coming up on the recyclers, which produce the bulk of the PC mats for the war effort. And anybody who knows about facility stuff, these are rather standard. The biggest challenge that the Joes had was this terrain is not great. That being said, they did an excellent job setting this up. Altogether, we have 5 recyclers split between these 2 fields. This is the main field with 3 recyclers. And these things consume a gargantuan amount of petrol every hour. Overall, they use 47.5 liters a second for 90% of the war. We've got the large trains that pull up besides this, and we're able to use these multiple sky cranes to load pretty much as quickly as you can. Load up pallets onto the pallet train, and we were able to bring multiple trains in here at the same time, keep loading them, and just keep moving them. It was really a sight to see. I know we have a lot of clips of it for anybody that's interested. We'll have Tier Lock has some videos that will be coming out showing a lot of this stuff. Some other details are that we ran excavators on 3 of our fields. So the excavator upgrade on the harvester allows this to keep producing salvage even when the field is down, which meant we had to have a lot of time. We spent a lot of time using mobile harvesters this war on all of our fields. The big benefit of that is it gives you, as long as you are clearing your fields, you get a lot more salvage and or coal. The downside is if there's not a lot of people on or only one person farming the field, it's extra work. But we were able to keep these fields spinning from both groups incredibly well, which gave us as much output as we needed. And we've got the last piece of the puzzle, which is the pink field, which is the white wick coal field.
Yeah, and just to, kind of explain things very, very, very briefly, this is pretty self-sufficient to make tier 2 pecans. I call it tier 2 pecans. It's like what you get from tier 2. You take tier 1 stuff at our coal field or petrol field, or you ship the petrol field down to the coal field, so it's all happening at the same place. But you combine tier 1 with tier 3 or tier 2 to get tier 3 stuff. So yeah, that's how that ends up working. But I'm assuming everybody knows that. So pecans get shipped up to our coal field and then further refined into steel mats or A5s.
Right.
Or 4s or 3s.
Yeah, the pink field, we were unsure of what to do with this because we were using a lot of the coal to go into the enriched oil platform. Towards the end of the war, we realized we needed huge amounts of coke, just giant amounts of coke. So instead of doing a full redesign on the pink field, instead we just decided we will just do train trips of coke as needed. Which a lot of us were skeptical on, just because coke is not a very dense resource to transport. So there was a lot of discussion on whether we make assembly materials 1 here, whether we make extra steel here. But at the end of the day, we weren't able to plug this in to a consistent source of salvage or anything else. So we decided we'll produce coke here and we'll move it by train. A lot of us were skeptical of that idea. It ended up working out really well in practice, just because it was easy to solo unload coke from this field to the next field. It was easy to load up, easy to ship. So it wasn't a very intensive task. One person could do it with a train. If 2 people were doing it, we could just run them pretty much nonstop.
At the same time, this is where all of our coal went to. The offshore oil rig came from here.
Yep.
We're talking about all the train trips. I just calculated in just the vegan pecans, which were not made at the coal field. It was roughly 150 train trips.
Awesome. But yeah, that's pretty much any other comments on the facility stuff.
That's it. I think that's it for it all. I mean, we're still a neutral regiment. We'll probably it's hard to say which side we're going on next war. We still have to talk about it, and then yeah. I mean, I would love to do a bluefin in the near future. I don't know. One of the big things about who we are is we adapt to what we get. So, you know, we did not intend to do this, but we got this and we adapted to it very, very well. So,
Yep, when we do facilities, our resource layouts, the resource layouts of the map, how the map looks, whether it's east versus west, north versus south, all of that always determines more of what we will be doing rather than what we are planning. So we'll make multiple plans to do different types of things, and then what the map gives us is what we decide on what we will be doing for the war.
the map, and yeah, I mean, enemy pushing, we're pushing, all of that plays a massive role. So, all right, well, I think that's it.
So this is the area. There are 45 battle tank pads and 4 large train pads. Aside from all the trees and the hay bales, I mean, it would have been a lot nicer to have it all clean, but anyway.
Hold on.
Yeah.
Let's stop right here. Let's talk about that.
What?
The bus.
Okay.
I want to know your thoughts about this bus.
So here is the tier 2 tour bus. Only really got to use it once or twice to max it out with people.
Is that tier 2? That looks like tier 3.
I keep saying tier 2 as tier 3.
Okay.
I call it tier 0, 1, and 2.
Great. All right, so,
so we use that when people wanted tours. I would do some impromptu tours and just go around the facility, explain to people, hey, this is how things are done.
So you would take a busload of people. How many times did you do that?
I think only twice. Other times I would try to get people, but it was only enough for like an Argonaut. I don't know. It is kind of a shame that something this big, while a lot of people are interested, there's still many thousands who just don't even register that it exists. So hopefully with videos like these, they can see like, oh, wow, I missed out. That was a thing. Oh, cool.
Yeah, I mean, it's visible on the map.
Yeah, it is very blatantly visible on the map.
So I absolutely love just looking at like large pads all over the place, and it's like, oh, you got 1 or 2 scattered, and then you've got this.
Yeah, there was a guy who came over, and he was like, he thought this was a meme at first, and thought it was just a LARP plan. And it took him like several days until he actually showed up, and then saw all the bounties printing, and was like, oh my god. Just walk on the path, sure.
Yeah. I mean, you're the one that did the catwalks. You're the one that laid all of this out.
Oh yeah. So yes, I did not leave the facility for several days. The process was, so we had multiple facility leads, right? And before the war, we all talked about generally what we want to do. When we saw the resource field layout, we thought, oh, this is the near perfect layout for doing something like this. But because it's such a large project, it is literally hex wide, that we needed everyone to split into their subsections and do whatever it is they're good at doing, and then having them all mesh together. So my responsibility was do the battle tank production area.
There's a couple of things that I really, really like. So you did these like impromptu ramps with and I really like this. Let's go where one of the doubles are. Yeah, up here.
Yeah, it was incredibly finicky, but fortunately it worked. Fun fact, these double rails were not supposed to be like this. It was supposed to be a single rail with sky cranes in the middle, but currently as of this patch, there was a bug where you can't actually drive a train underneath them, so that ruined that.
It's not just this patch. It's been several patches.
Several patches now. I hope the next patch it is fixed.
Now, one LARP thing I do want to point out, because this is we ended up having to pay for this, is a lot of this pad is unnecessary, right?
Correct. So originally it was going to be the sky crane in the middle. Well, actually, I don't want to say unnecessary, because if you actually take out your hammer, you'll see that this is one foundation here, a second one here, and we needed a half.
Oh,
right?
for the yeah. Okay,
for
so
the
you may
large
as well build.
So I
it
just
on.
so I just made another 2x2 here, and it's mirrored on the other side. So it's not necessarily, it's larger space, but it's not more M subs versus using half ones.
Right. Now, one of the things about this is that once these are up on a crane, like this BTD is up on a crane, we have to use the special train to get it off.
Correct. So originally the idea was to use the sky cranes, but because that was thrown out because of the bug, we thought, okay, we'll just use cranes. The problem was there's almost no place for the cranes to deposit the battle tank back down when things are printing. So we made a small gauge, literally just go on a loop circle here in order to bring down the tanks to then move it over to the other side of the pads to then drop it down.
Yeah, one of the things that I am disappointed with this facility is this location is one of my favorites to build in because of what it does to foundations. It gives it the texture. The texture goes on top of the foundation here, and so you have this really cool looking foundation, but when you raise it above the ground up here, you don't get that texture.
I mean, yeah, it's more just an artistic thing.
Yeah.
The raising of the ground was because even though this place is very flat, while blueprinting, there were sections of it that were clipping slightly past that, and you could not actually put a large gauge. So either I had to make a step foundation, which could have actually been cool, right? That might have looked cool. But it would have been a pain to make the rails through it, because now you had to like step the rails up somehow, and that was kind of like not a guarantee would work. Or you just make it one level foundation. Thankfully, it was not nerfed, because they nerfed the height that you could make these, because frontline players were abusing it at frontlines to make giant walls. So that was heavily nerfed, and it was very scary because a lot of a height that I tried for this did not work. Even though it was still relatively shallow, it was still, yeah, it almost did not work because of that hotfix. I do wish that was maybe looked at a little bit to make it more refined, so it doesn't punish, facility players trying to build in weird, odd elevation places like in Heartlands. It's a giant hill, and you cannot build anything almost on a lot of the places because of that hotfix. But other than that, yeah, this was a relatively flat area that we could pave a bunch of foundations on. So you just make it all blue. It's all blue screen. And then once you're okay with the setting, you fill in the concrete. And then after that, you fill in the stuff. And you have to do a bunch of finicking. So like the pads, for example, I had to make sure... Originally, I was going to have the power poles be in between the pads. But when you have so many pads lined up, you end up with the issue that they get the cascading effect where they get shifted down more than you intended. So I actually had to inch up the all of the pads in order to put the power poles behind it, so they did not have that cascading effect going down. That way we could fit as many pads in a line as we can.
Right, so I see now. Did you actually build any of these power poles?
No. So on this part, this was from Suicider onto the power plant. So I made the connections for the pads area.
Okay.
And then from there, JJ and Suicider went through and connected to the power plants. I didn't worry about that.
That's one thing I love about our group. Is Suicider is just one name out of many that put in a lot of time and effort into this facility, but like he's like a quiet cog in the mix, and there's a lot of these guys that we have that honestly, like, he was able to do this without a lot of direction, right? You didn't have to hold his hand to put in the power poles, and then he did a really good job.
Yeah, considering there's also a lot of random hay bales everywhere, that kind of like unfortunately break up the area. It did work out. So you tell him, he's like, hey, what do I need to do? It's like, okay, I need 46 power plants. Go. And he's like, all right, I'll do that.
With how much each is going where.
Yeah. So yeah, JJ and I think him went through that.
And then
I think it was. Yeah.
You created 4 rows. Now you're not the one that named the 4 rows A, B, C, and.
No, I did.
Okay.
So that's the funny part. Because we went with so many pads, we actually had to like modify how we talk about which pad we're talking about. Yeah, it's kind of obscene when you get to the scale that you're referring to BT production as columns, so column A, B, C, and D, and rows. We tried putting signs on them, so you'll see signs on part of them, but unfortunately there is a sign limit distance, so we could not put a sign on column C. There's a minimum distance requirement, so that is unfortunately too big at the moment. And same with the cranes. You'll notice the cranes, they start off kind of uniform, but then they cascade down and end up being in the middle of the pads. That is, again, because there's a crane limitation of 10 meters, and I hope after this, maybe DevMan looks at it and says, you know what, let's bring that down a bit, maybe 5. That way we could have, like, the same... Yeah, the symmetry, but also, like, a lot of the battle tanks you can't actually drive off in front of it because of that cascading effect. So at the ends you can, but then in the middle it's like, oh yeah, good luck. You're gonna have to find someplace else.
And then you did the
Just tiny
switches too, right? Like all of the cranes are on switches.
Yeah. So on column D or column C and D, we have one switch because early on we had one of the power plants share with an extra pad the power. But if we had that entire section on, we would be overloaded, and that would slow down the production of this. So currently we have it like, hey, if we got to use C and D, just turn this on. It turns on all the cranes on that side of the facility. Do what you got to do, lift what you got to do, and then you just turn it back off, and they all go off.
Now, where's that? Where's the train for the unloading? Where would that be?
Oh, so we have, yeah, it was literally just a train with one single cart. No, well, partially, but the guy brought it back. So now it's the train with 4 cars here.
Oh, okay. I did see that. I was like, and then we put that up on a crane too, and we didn't at first until it got stolen.
Yeah, it's crazy when you make a battle tank facility like this. People still steal your trains, which is like, guys, we actually need this to make more tanks. Like, could you not?
Well, so the one thing about our rail was we built it private, right? It was just a private loop.
Yes, but members of the public cannot help themselves but to connect to you. It is frustrating.
Yeah, and so there was a line that went to the seaport that was not connected to us at all. We had no connections. There was this line at Longstone that never connected, although it went across the lines. But and up here, like this should not have been connected. We ended up connecting later, but do you remember when somebody came into the hex? Like one of the first things they said?
Yeah, they were very mad. Yes, yeah. Someone came in Hex, and they were like, "Hey, where's the public rail?" And we were like, "Well, there is a public rail. It's like we built it, but it's not connected to the coal field or the salvage fields. Like it goes to the seaport, and it goes out of region. That's, as a member of the public, that is all you really need, especially for consuming all of the coal in this hex. Like, go to another field. Like, we're trying to make things happen, right, for free." And we said, you're welcome to use the other rails. If you got to pass by, go to the other ones. You don't have to go through our facility, right? And they were like, why? Why did you do this? It's like, oh, because we're making battle tanks for everybody, right? Free battle tanks. Of course, this isn't the way for the video, but and then they said, what they say? They're like, oh, that's very selfish of you, or something like that.
Yeah.
To have private rail.
Well, and how
like
how many trains a day did we run?
Like minimum, I think in order to you needed to do. I think a minimum of like 18 or 20. And that's not including subtrain. That is not including subtrain.
The
So-
subtrain, yeah. You're
add
cutting in and out there.
10 for that one.
Yeah, so
yeah.
so we're constantly on the rail, and it does block the rail for normal usage. So it's like we're just constantly on the rail. One thing is we want to be out of your way on the public. Like, you don't want to come through here because we're constantly stopping train traffic for our own trains.
Yeah.
So out of politeness, we're like, yeah, let's just divert the train, through the next hole. And you could have even gone through this hole. We weren't being the barons on how to connect. We were just like, we have a private rail. We want to keep it private so that we can run 20 trains. And anyways, I think this ended up being more of a language barrier when he was like, you're selfish, but still.
We've still had others, react in POS breaking manners. We told them they can't just connect through our stuff.
To anybody that's made it to the end of this video, I truly am impressed. If you're interested in working in facilities with us, we'd love to have you around. If not, I'm thankful that you made it this far in the video.